All right, let's talk about uranium. It's a market that's usually pretty quiet, predictable. But right now, something is seriously off. The biggest buyers on the planet, the nuclear power utilities, are in a full-blown scramble. It's basically a run on the bank, but for nuclear fuel. So let's get into what's really going on here. To really get what's happening, you have to understand this one weird signal the market is flashing. It's a term called backwardation. Now, normally, if you agree to buy something, say 2 years from now, you'd expect a bit of a discount, right? Well, in the uranium market, the exact opposite is happening. And that is a massive red flag. And when you look at the actual numbers, it gets even crazier. Utilities are paying $80 a pound for uranium they can get their hands on today. But for uranium they won't even see for years, they're locking in deals at $86 a pound. That's a 7.5% premium. They are literally choosing to pay more for something in the future. That tells you they are deeply, deeply concerned about something.
Which brings us to the huge question, right? Why on earth would these super sophisticated, normally penny-pinching buyers willingly pay more for something later? What do they see coming down the pike that's making them so nervous right now? This is really the core mystery we need to unpack.
So this anxiety, it's not just talk. It's leading to a complete reversal in how utilities have operated for decades. It's a total strategic panic. For years, the old playbook was simple. Run lean, keep just enough fuel for maybe a year and a half, 2 years, and just buy more when you need it. Well, they've torn that playbook up and thrown it out the window. The new strategy? It's all about strategic hoarding. They're now trying to stockpile 3 to 4 years of supply, and they're prioritizing security over cost. They're working under a terrifying new assumption that in the near future, there might not be a spot market to buy from at all. And this isn't just a plan for the future, it's already happening. In 2024 alone, U.S. utility inventories have already jumped by 6%. That's up to 167 million pounds. The run on inventory has begun. And you can see the panic in their actions. They're signing these risky contracts with floating prices, deals they would have laughed at just a few years ago. They're even layering contracts, signing multiple deals with the same company just to make sure they have a spot in the line. Get this, you've got over 50 U.S. utilities all fighting over the same limited supply from the same handful of producers. It is an absolute feeding frenzy. So what is driving this utter panic? Why this sudden lurch towards hoarding? Well, it all comes down to one single, mind-bogglingly huge number for the entire nuclear industry. To put it as simply as possible, U.S. utilities have woken up and realized they haven't actually bought enough uranium to fuel their reactors in the coming years. There is a giant, gaping hole in their future inventory, and they've all realized it at the exact same time. This is the why behind everything. And here's that number, 184 million pounds. Let that sink in for a second. Between now and 2034, American utilities are short that much uranium. This isn't just a little oops, it's a colossal gap. It represents years of fuel that is completely 100% unsecured. And look at how fast this thing gets out of control. This isn't some far-off problem for 2050. By 2028, the shortfall is already 11.5 million pounds. By 2030, it balloons to over 20 million. And by 2033, they're short almost 40 million pounds in a single year. That's nearly 80% of what the entire U.S. fleet needs, just missing. Now, you might think this is just a U.S. problem, but it's not happening in a vacuum. This mad dash by American utilities to plug their own giant hole is creating this dangerous feedback loop all across the globe. It's turning a national problem into a full-blown global crisis. Just think about this for a second. If utilities around the world see the panic in the U.S. and decide, hey, maybe we should add just 1 extra year of supply to our own stockpile for safety, that single decision creates 180 million pounds of brand new demand out of thin air. That's an entire year's worth of global uranium production just poof, taken off the market and locked away in a warehouse. It's the definition of a run on the bank. And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? This quote nails it. Paying that 7.5% premium seems nuts until you realize they're not speculating on the price going up. They're hedging against the very real possibility of there being no uranium available at any price. They're paying for certainty, for availability, to avoid a future where they can't keep the lights on. So, as if a massive supply gap and a global run on inventory wasn't enough pressure, the simple physics of making nuclear fuel adds another really scary layer to this whole thing, a hard, unmovable deadline. So you can't just take uranium out of the ground and dump it in a reactor. It has to be processed. It takes about 18 to 24 months to convert it, enrich it, and fabricate it into these highly engineered fuel assemblies. So if a utility needs that finished fuel ready to load in 2028, you work backwards. And the absolute drop-dead latest they can buy the raw uranium is the first quarter of 2026. After that date, it is physically impossible to get it ready in time. So the key takeaway here is pretty stark. The race for 2028's fuel isn't some future event. It is happening right now. That procurement window is closing, and it's closing fast. And there is absolutely zero slack in this timeline. Okay, so when you put all of these pieces together, what you're left with is a new and probably permanent reality for the entire nuclear fuel market. This isn't just a temporary blip that's going to fix itself. What we're looking at is a structural crisis, and it's been born from a perfect storm of factors. For a decade, nobody invested in new mines. Now, that's slamming head-on into a global nuclear power renaissance. At the same time, we're trying to get away from Russian supply, and on top of it all, you have this frantic inventory hoarding we just talked about. It's a mess. And in this new world, the power has shifted completely. With the ban on Russian imports taking a huge supplier off the table, the very few companies in friendly places like the US that actually have permitted mines, or even better, physical pounds already in a warehouse, well, they're in the driver's seat. They are holding all the cards. Which leaves us with one final and kind of chilling thought. You've got this high-stakes game of musical chairs. Everyone is scrambling for a limited supply before that 2026 deadline hits. But in a market with no slack, with a massive hole in supply, eventually the music is going to stop. And the question is, which utilities are going to be left without a chair, unable to get the fuel they need to power our world, and what happens then?